It's Thursday, March 7th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about the capital improvement projects on Town Council's agenda this evening and how they may be funded. Municipal news and notes. Mercy Otis Warren, born in West Barnstable in 1728, was a playwright, a historian, a pioneer in women's rights, a champion of liberty, an advocate of the Bill of Rights, and a patriot. In an era where it was unusual for women to be educated, much less to emerge as a leader, her advocacy for the cause of patriotism and a central role for women in society was remarkable. Do you know a woman who exemplifies the virtues of Mercy Otis Warren? Nominate her for the Mercy Otis Warren Cape Cod Woman of the Year Award at www.barnstablecounty.org. Jessica Rapp-Grassetti, Precinct 7 Town Councilor, joins us in studio for an update. We welcome Councilor Jessica Rapp-Grassetti, Precinct 7, here to the studio today to talk a little bit about capital improvement projects and what's going on in Katuitt. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paula.
So, big town council meeting Thursday night. It's the reading of a lot of these new capital improvement projects. So, there's some specific things to Katuitt and some things that are actually kind of from last capital improvement actually being implemented now. So, lead it off. What's on the agenda?
Yeah, well, we'll act on these items over the next two meetings in April. They'll be read in this week, but one of them is the 2019-116, which is the Loop Beach improvements, the beach house improvements, which is part of Craigville Beach and Dowses Beach. I don't see much happening this fiscal year 2020 on that beach house, but design and permitting. I think the final construction on Craigville will happen, and then Loop Beach House is priority 2. So that will happen the following year, but they'll do some designing on that project.
And before you get too far ahead, priorities. Just tell residents how priorities work when you say a priority 2. What does that really mean for residents?
Well, when the departments go before the manager and to prioritize their projects, what's needed the most. And as far as the Loop Beach house improvements, you know, I should know the priority. It's number 1 out of 15 in that Department of Community Services. Right. You know, we like to act on them according to priority, and not everything can make the CIP, as you know. Right. There's limited funds available, so that one fell at number 1 for the Community Services Department, which is a good thing. Right. So, and the estimated renovation cost, when it does take place in fiscal 2021, would be about $492,000. It's a pretty small house. It just holds 2 restrooms and has an outdoor shower and spigot for washing your feet. So Loop Beach is a pretty small beach. Right. So, the next item is 2019-122, and that's under public bridge improvements. And the public bridges, and these are eligible for Chapter 90 funds. That's the Santuit River Bridge that is on School Street to Quinquisset in Mashpee. A lot of people call it the Crabbing Bridge. It's a great place to go crabbing. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. People are going to go crabbing. So that bridge was built in 2001, and Mass DOT, as they do, inspected the bridge last summer, and came up with an inspection report. And there's no major problems with it. It could be something as easy a fix to perhaps fix some crack on the pavement, or cut back brush leading to the bridge, or doing some striping on the bridge or some lining. So it's not major work on that bridge. So that's a good thing. And the last one for this fiscal year is 2019-150, and that's the Katuitt Town Dock extension. Last year, in 2018-074, that item was appropriated $30,000, which actually hasn't been expended according to the CIP book, to do a study of municipal pier, maybe the addition of one in the Three Bays area. And if you look at the CIP, there's talk about putting a new pier at Bridge Street in Osterville. This would be an extension of the Cotuit dock. There's been concern that the fire department hasn't had dockage space at that dock. It's a real heavily used dock, and this is for the design and permitting, $75,000. So not for the construction, design and permitting. That comes first. So I don't know what the cost will be to put the extension on, but once that's put on, then the Cotuit Fire Department, which has a boat, could be docked there. I mean, for response time, the boat really should be in the water, not up on land at the firehouse.
That's a busy harbor.
Very busy.
Right.
And you know, I was going to mention my blog, BarnstablePrecinct7.com. The biggest hit I get on that blog, and I get hundreds of hits, is the Town Dock webcam. People love to look at the webcam.
Right. And we do it here too.
So you do it here. So it gets a lot of hits and a lot of traffic down there too.
Right.
So.
And a lot of these capital improvement projects that are listed for town council, what does this have to do with public safety? People don't realize that, yes, it's a new roof for a school or maybe an HVAC system that's failed or is failing, but a lot of these projects are actually around public safety.
Absolutely, yeah. That's public safety is number one. And also maintenance. You don't want something to be deferred for so long that it becomes so prohibitively expensive that, but absolutely public safety is important.
Usually easier to replace something before it's completely done. The replacement cost usually is less if you fix it before it's actually have to buy something new.
Right, that's right, that's right.
So you had some pedestrian safety as well.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, this came out of the Cotuit Civic Association, and I work pretty close with them. I join, or I'm not on the board, but I go to their board meetings once a month and make a report. And they came to me saying, Jessica, we've got some concerns, and I've got a lot of constituents who complain about the speeding cars on the streets. And a lot of people walk in Cotuit, especially in the summertime, and they walk down to the beach, and we don't have sidewalks everywhere. So we came up with a plan, and there's going to be some improvements to crosswalks on Main Street, School Street intersection, and on School Street, High Street, which is right by the post office and church. Very busy area, as well as on this, and this is the most major one, down on Main Street at Ocean View Avenue. Ocean View Avenue, which goes down to Riley's Beach and Luke Beach, does not have a sidewalk. So you can walk down there, but if you're on Main Street and want to cross at Ocean View Ave, up until last year, you couldn't without there was no crosswalk. Well, there's a crosswalk there now, but that's caused some traffic concerns. So the DPW is going to be putting in a three-way stop, which is pretty significant for the village of Cotuit.
Wow.
So there'll be a three-way there. We'll see how it goes. Some three-way stop with granite curbing. So this was a previous appropriation that's being worked on. Also a previous one is the Santuit River Bridge at Old Kings Road. Old Kings Road is a private road, and it connects and goes over the bridge to Mashpee. But since it's such a heavily used road and connects two public roads, the monies used for that will be taken out of the fund that was established for private road repair. So that will also be happening this spring. So those are previous projects that are coming forward.
Right.
And then we have a few deferred that are listed in our book. This is talking about priorities. DPW priority 23 out of 46 was the Cotuit Memorial Park renovation, restoration. And that was about $322,000. It's been deferred. That was to fix the asphalt walkways, replace some of the old and diseased Norway maples, and move the memorial stone, one of the memorial stones, make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly and connect it to the library a little bit more. Years ago, there used to be steps from the park to the library, and those were taken away. So the Civic Association is really pushed for that, and we'll see if it gets in the next round next year. So.
Right, there's, the bucket's only so wide and so full of money, so that, again, that prioritizing of projects really has to come down to, does it benefit more people, and how much safety and folks that, actually are impacted by some of these decisions.
Yeah, and that also the Civic Association might have some time to perhaps create a fund to help defer some of the costs, and I don't know, maybe even community preservation funds, since it's open space. So.
Right. And before we kind of end with our annual tour, I kind of want to have residents understand that tonight's meeting for Town Council really is reading all of these items in. So they're not being decided tonight. No. There'll be public hearings on all of this. So if they have comments and things that they want people to hear, what do you suggest citizens do? Come to the meeting and provide their public comment during those hearings? Absolutely.
They're read into the record. By law, they're required to be read into the record. The public hearing on them, I think, will begin on April 7th. But certainly there's so many items, we won't get to them all that night. So the 2 meetings in April and sometimes even into the beginning of May, but usually we can get them done in 2 meetings because the agenda's kept open for those items. So they can contact me, or there is online, the Town Council webpage. You can submit a comment on an agenda item, just a 1 click, and reference the agenda item and submit your comments, or come to public comment or Town Council. You can speak during public comment, but usually we like to hear public comment on an item when it's read and being acted upon at that time. So we have people do that. So.
Excellent. Yeah. And your concerns of Katuitt, the annual tour.
The annual tour, which has been very successful. Right. Again, the Civic Association, we pushed to do this years ago when I became a counselor. The department heads and the manager come out to Precinct 7. We usually meet at Freedom Hall at a round table and talk about major concerns that everybody has, and then we do a tour. We get into van and do actual tour of some of the spots that are concerning, and that's been very effective because through that we were able to change Old Shore Road to a one-way, and that's been very effective for the village. And it's an annual event, and it's a good thing.
Is it scheduled? Do you have a date for it?
We don't have a date. It's usually in April.
Okay.
When the weather gets a little bit better, cross fingers. And it's what I usually do is work with the Civic Association, and we develop a list ahead of time and submit that to DPW and the manager, so that when they come to the meeting, they're kind of armed with what our concerns are. And the police chief comes as well, because as you know, pedestrian safety and speeding in the village are major concerns.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anything else you want residents to know before we?
No, just, I'm always available. I do hold monthly office hours at the library. It's always the second Wednesday of the month from 3 to 5, but if you can't make it there, by all means call me, and I'm available to meet any other time.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Finance Director Mark Milne joins us in studio for a deep dive on municipal bonds, an important funding source for capital projects. Well, it seems like it's budget season all year long, but it really kicks into high gear as we approach the spring. With me today, Finance Director Mark Milne. We're talking bonds, we're talking capital programs, we're talking funding, all sorts of things, but no math, you promised me.
No math. I'll try to keep this conversation limited to words and no math.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about the bond piece of it first. So, you know, capital programs have to be funded, and we'll get into that in a bit. But what are bonds for municipalities?
Yeah, bonds are a way for us to finance our capital program. It's where we go out and we essentially borrow money, just like you or I would for to purchase a home or to purchase an automobile. We go out to the bond market and we issue bonds where investors will provide us the funding that was necessary to finance our capital program. And so that's what a municipal bond is. It's just a debt issuance by a municipality to finance a capital program.
Okay. And who are those bond players? It seems like it's a little nebulous. It's like those people.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, the key players in this are, first of all, the rating agencies. Every bond issue that a municipality does has to have a rating assigned to it. Okay. And that's a rating, whether it's a double A, a triple A, a double, triple B, whatever. One of these bond rating agencies will come in and assess the community's financial health and its management practices and issue a ratings report. And investors who are bidding on those bonds, who are another player, the investors, will use those ratings reports to determine how much they're willing to pay for those bonds. And then there are underwriters who actually purchase the bonds and then reoffer those bonds to the investors. So the underwriters will use these as well, these ratings reports. And then you have what's called the financial advisors. Financial advisors are exactly what the term references. They advise the towns. They help the towns organize or structure the bond issue to its advantage. How many years maturity are we looking at? Are we doing 5-year issue, 10-year issue, 20-year issue, for example? Combination of issues. And then they'll also help with collecting the bids on these things. And then we also have bond counsel, which is a key player. Bond counsel is usually a law firm. We use Lock Lord out of Boston as our bond counsel. And what they do is they make sure that we followed all of the steps necessary to issue a legally tax-exempt bond, because they're certifying to the underwriters and investors that these are tax-free municipal bonds. Anybody who invests in a municipal bonds, you have double tax advantages. There's no federal or state income tax on any of the income that you receive from those bonds, the interest that you earn on those bonds. And so being tax-free, we enjoy lower interest rates when we go to the market and borrow money because the income that's earned by the investors is tax-free.
Okay, and let's go back to a bond rating. Recently, Barnstable's been rated with the AAA.
Yes, we've had the AAA rating since 2007. We've been able to maintain it, and the various things that they cite in their ratings report is the town has very strong budgetary flexibility, very strong management, very strong liquidity, and so. And a strong institutional framework that we operate within. And so by looking at, and they do one of these financial management assessments, which is unique by Standard & Poor's. They come in and actually do a financial management assessment tool that they have, and they look at the community's practices and policies that are in place, which is kind of unique to their rating process. And they determine those to be very strong for the town of Barnstable. And that starts right up from the very top of the organization with the town council adopting administrative policies and ordinances that dictate, we're going to do long-range capital planning, we're going to do long-range financial forecasting, and things like that. And having those practices embedded in our ordinances and our administrative code lend to that strong financial management that they rate us on.
Right. And that advantage of that AAA rating when you go out for bonds, there must be some cachet to that.
Absolutely. Think of it like you have a perfect credit score of 850, right? So
not quite, but around there.
That's our perfect credit score, AAA.
Okay.
And so by having that highest rating, you're going to earn a better interest rate on that borrowing, theoretically. There are other factors that also contribute to the interest rate that you pay in a bond. It's not just your rating, but that is a key component of it. Obviously, a less risky municipality, they're gonna offer you, they're going to let you borrow money from them at a lower interest rate. But there are other things. How many other players are in the market that day? What's your competition in the market? Who are you issuing bonds up against. There could be 50 other communities issuing bonds on the same day.
Wow.
So there could be a lot of competition for investors' monies, you know, to borrow money. So that can have a factor into it as well. So, but the AAA rating is believed to save on average 25 basis points or a quarter of a percentage point
Wow,
on a
that's
borrowing,
significant.
which can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in an issue.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about, so are bonds issued every year for these capital projects?
We have a pretty healthy capital program in Barnstable, so every year we're going to the market.
Okay.
And we have access to the market. Because of that history of strong access to the market, that's another advantage for us.
Right.
We've demonstrated that we're always accessing the market and we're paying our bonds back faithfully, and we anticipate that going forward because we have a pretty large capital program. We have another $30 million capital program that's being brought forward for fiscal year 2020.
Right. And let's talk a little bit now, just to kind of like pull it all together here. A capital program is not operating. It's not the day-to-day operations. It's not the employees or their salaries or anything like that. What is the capital program in a municipality?
Yeah. These are those large one-time expenditures where they don't happen on an annual basis. I mean, replacing a roof, constructing a new ball field. And things like that. They're typically large one-time expenditures that are creating an asset with value that's going to be used for a number of years that will benefit the communities for years to come.
Okay. That makes sense now. So when we start to see these budget numbers come out and the capital program that's imminent at this point in time, do you anticipate going, once it's approved by town council, is that when you go for the bonds, or is it, do you do some like footwork before that?
There's a lot of footwork, and the footwork involves bond counsel mainly.
Okay.
We have to make sure that we provide bond counsel a certified copy of every single vote taken by the council. We have to certify whether it was a majority vote or a 2/3 vote was necessary. Every borrowing authorization requires a 2/3 vote by the town council. We have to make sure it was advertised properly. So we have to gather all this documentation provided to bond council and meet their requirements. They send us what's called a requirements letter every year. We send them, here's our capital plan. They'll send us a requirements letter saying we want this, 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 and this for every single one of these authorizations by the town council. So there's a lot of legwork. Our town treasurer, Deborah Blanchette, manages that process to gather all that paperwork for bond counsel. And typically what we see is we issue in the month of February every year. Because we find accessing the market in the month of February, it's a slow time, and so the competition for municipal bonds becomes greater and offering us benefits in the terms of lower interest rates. A lot of communities will push their borrowing needs to the end of the fiscal year in June, and then you're up against the wall. You got a timing issue. You're trying to get these capital expenditures, the cost of the capital expenditures covered with the bond issue before June 30th, so you don't end up in a deficit situation. And there could be a lot of players in the market, and you may not get as strong an interest rate if you go that late in the fiscal year. So we target February. It works well for us. We've done it for the past several years in the month of February. And this, for example, this year, we just received, we were just awarded a bond issue of 2.5% on the borrowing, which is remarkable, considering interest rates are on a climb.
Right.
It was actually less than the last two bond issues that we did in 2018 and 2017.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's, you know, not quite as crazy as Bitcoin, but
Yeah.
there is this process to make sure that these projects, literally, that have to be done, get funded in such a way that the municipality can actually afford it.
Right, right. And so, I mean, part of the whole process, planning process that goes into it is we look at the maturity schedules of all of our outstanding loans. We have over 200 loan issues right now that we're paying back that have been over the past 10 years that we've issued. And we have to keep a track of all of these maturing loans so that we can identify capacity going forward for the capital program over the next 5 years. And so it's a, when you have that size portfolio, it becomes a pretty big responsibility for somebody to keep an eye on and to manage appropriately. And there's always opportunities for refinancing. We call in the municipal market refunding. We call it on a personal level, it's a refinancing, like your mortgage, for example. We've done some refunding in the past that has saved millions of dollars in interest cost over the remaining life of the loans or the bonds. However, with the tax reform that just took place last year, they eliminated the opportunities for municipalities to refund. So going forward, we don't have that anymore, but that could change.
Okay. Any last words on bonding and funds? And it's fascinating, and there was no math except for a little bit of interest, but that was okay. I can calculate that.
Well, again, as I mentioned before, the town manager just provided his recommended 2020 capital program to the town council yesterday. We'll be making a presentation on that proposal to the town council at their March 7th meeting. So we look forward to the discussion on that. 57 projects included in that plan.
Wow. Excellent. Yeah. Great work, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Here is a look at things to do, places to go, and people to meet. It's time for all Cape Cod students, K through 12, to get creative about stopping litter. Litter Free Begins With Me is the theme of the Cape Cod Arts Center's Cape-wide poster contest, designed to increase students' awareness of how casually discarded trash spoils the unique beauty of Cape Cod and endangers wildlife in our woods and oceans. The contest asks students from grades K through 12 to create posters illustrating what they believe is the most important about preventing litter on Cape Cod. The contest is open to all students who are residents on Cape Cod, public, private, or homeschooled. Now for a look at upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Maybe not. Town Council tonight, 7 p.m., second floor hearing room. Comments, suggestions, accolades, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.